Hello everybody, this is Triumvir412 doing the commentary for the game Clannad-2, which I played on webdiplomacy.net. I controlled Turkey, and my initial strategy was to work out a juggernaut with Russia, the alliance between the two of our nations. I was going to move through the Mediterranean, picking up as many of those centers as I could, hopefully making it all the way to Portugal, at which time I would turn north and try to grab the last few from Russia. So we'll see how that worked out for me. I had a fairly average first year. I didn't hear a lot from Austria or Italy or from the people on the far side of the map, but Russia and I were able to work out our agreement. So we just bounced in the Black Sea and were prepared to work with one another throughout the early stages of the game at the very least. Pretty average. I just take Bulgaria, but then moving into the next year you see that there were Italian units fighting Austria and Russian units bearing down on Austria and my units as well. Austria really in need of a friend, and so he was talking to me. You see this line here designating his order to support me into Romania against Russia. That of course I don't do. Instead I attack Serbia in the spring, which allows me to take that in the spring and then Greece in the fall. So far for me in the south, the juggernaut working out fairly well. Russia making decent gains in the north, and Italy carving into the opposite side of Austria, even though France is bearing down on him. So after mediocre or average maybe first year, my second year turns out pretty well, and I am able to get a couple builds. My move here to Albania in the spring of '03 brought Italy down on me pretty hard. I don't remember if I promised not to move there or if it was just a move that upset him, but from that point on you see him moving against me, thwarting my efforts, as it were. You also notice over here, I didn't point it out, but my fleet in Ankara and the fleet in Sevastopol bounced in the Black Sea 4 times, in the spring and fall in '01, spring and fall in '02. In the beginning of '03 we decided to stop doing that. That becomes important because here now in '04 that I have moved my fleets around and I am utterly out of position, Russia decides to stab me. He attempts to take Serbia, which he doesn't get, but he does move into Black Sea, which allows him to threaten Ankara, and I am not able to stop that move at all. So that was pretty awful. But you do see, I think, in the next couple of years, example of good play. You notice that Germany and France have been fighting over here, in fact Germany in a French home center, but seeing the threat of Russia just growing ridiculously huge over here and taking out my back center, you notice now in the spring of '05 they abandon their fight with one another and decide to join forces and fight against Russia. As for me, I do my best to hold Russia off, trying to defend what I've got left, but '05 comes and goes and it becomes very obvious that that's not going to work out. Here I could have defended Constantinople or Smyrna. He could have attacked one or the other. I just chose the wrong one, so that kind of stunk. And at that point, at the end of '05, I really just decide that I need to do whatever I can to survive. He's bearing down on me. I'm not getting any help. I don't have a great position. And so you'll see, once this year is over, I disband the unit in Constantinople, and I move my fleets back to Ionian so that in the fall I can convoy an army over to Tunis. I didn't point it out, once again, in 1905, Italy went into civil disorder, stopped submitting orders. England had done so already. England did it in the spring of '05. Italy did it in the fall of '05. So those two nations out, and Russia just pounding into me down here. But like I said, I was able to get my army convoyed across into Tunis. I hoped that France would let me stay there, and by the time Russia had made it that far, he would have won the game. Or France and Germany would have turned him around. In 1907, the fight between France, Germany, and Russia rages on while I just kind of mess around with these two territories, trying to do what I can to hold them while I sit securely back here in Tunis. And as I said, it continues to move along. In the spring of '08, Germany doesn't submit moves, which could have been fairly disastrous if that continued on. Russia could have just swooped in and probably soloed. But then, in the fall, that very next turn, Germany comes back and Russia stops submitting moves, and he does not start again. So you see, just throughout the rest of the 1 year the game lasts, it's just a story of France and Germany walking into Russian centers. And the game ends that fall with France taking 18, Germany taking 10, and me sitting here with my 3. Russia also had 3, but he did not survive, he left. And so he got no points for that. They were distributed between the other 3 players who survived, depending on how many centers we had. So it was a survival for me, not exactly what I was hoping for. Poor defense on my part, watching for the stab against my ally, just being too tempting to stab someone and take one of their home centers. But it was a survival, so there's that. And all in all, it was a fun game, so that's what's important. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them, and thanks for watching.